some virtual reality tracking systems offer a degree of precision and accuracy on par with arcade light gun games. In episode 215 I showed a wide variety of gun controllers and attachments, which make the experience more immersive, and in episode 237 I demonstrated how people can build a nice VR gun for just $20. There are VR programs which simulate a monitor in a living room, which combined with emulators enable players to enjoy a slew of retro games in virtual space. MUVR supports light gun games for various home consoles and is a great way to play light gun games at home for people who happen to own an VR HMD anyways. In this video we will be taking a look at TouchPoint, which borrows the tracking information of a stationary placed VR system for usage in the real world. TouchPoint is a technology demonstration made by David Nailbuster Paiva in January 2022. He demonstrated his project on YouTube and on the arcadecontrols forum. It's a proof of concept, made as a hobby for the fun of tinkering, and is not meant to substitute your current favorite light gun. It is intended for people who own a VR system already anyways. Because David wrote his program with the Unity engine, which uses OpenXR for compatibility between various HMDs, in theory TouchPoint would run on a slew of systems, but David himself just tried Oculus products with it so far. In the case of using an Oculus Quest 2, a program has to be launched on the HMD itself. The device will then wirelessly connect to a computer that runs a server program. The Quest 2 can then be placed in front of the to-be-used screen. The HMD recognizes the Touch Q2 controllers and tracks their position and inputs, which are sent to the computer. The server program knows the angle, height and width of the screen from an initialization file. Therefore, the only thing left to do is to calibrate the spatial position of the monitor. This is done by aiming for the center of the monitor perpendicularly from a known distance of 30 cm and pressing the grip button. The positional data of the Touch Q2 controller can be put into relation to the screen location, which allows the software to project an on-screen cursor to where the controller is pointed at. The software also recognizes when the controller is pointed off-screen and thus is able to map a second layer of functions to the buttons or react in another fashion. If motion tracking is done as described here, the minimal necessary distance between screen and player is pretty low compared to IR-based tracking methods and the Synden light gun. For my Quest 2 experiments I used the iPlay Games Gun pistol cradle. Like I explain in more detail in episode 215, gun cradles work best if they fit snugly and change the shape of the grip to become more pistol-like. I love this iPlay 1911 style cradle especially for its clear side picture. One could of course buy a cradle without sights and add some oneself. That way the available selection would be wider and one could choose a cradle which has a mechanical force feedback system. Such a shell would certainly make an interesting template for the electronic feedback system I discussed in episode 237. If the player picks up and wears the HMD while TouchPoint is running, a blue rectangle can be seen where the system assumes the location of the real-world screen to be. If set up well, this rectangle has the same height, width and angle as the real screen has. This is a nice tool for troubleshooting whenever something goes wrong. If the player isn't using a wireless Oculus product, but something tethered, the normally HMD-sided program has to be run from the computer instead. In place of the IPv4 of the computer, you would enter the localhost address 127.0.0.1 as you would not work over Wi-Fi then. Because Lighthouse is my favorite VR tracking method, David compiled a version of TouchPoint for me, which I was able to test with HTC Vive. To my great delight, the basic functionality works very well, but the tracking is off, because distances and dimensions seem to be scaled differently to how the program is expecting them to be. My findings are just approximations, but in case TouchPoint gets open sourced, I would like to document them here for interested parties and tinkerers. As is, the software underestimates the screen width and height by a factor of 0.8. The screen is expected about 30 cm or one screen width closer to the player than it really is, and the software thinks the screen is offset from the real screen position by one screen height in the y-axis. I can't really comment on the performance, accuracy and precision of TouchPoint, because it's just a tech demo right now and not meant to be perfect yet. The player is limited to integer centimeters when entering the screen dimensions, and calibration is done with a single vague reference point. As such, the projection of the controller towards the screen is not perfect. Also, the tracking will just be as good as the HMD is. So if the player were to connect an obscure HMD rather than something which is known for good tracking, results may vary. Using a wireless 2.4 GHz network, the tracking got laggy when I sent fast consecutive series of shots. But the wireless connection is no inherent prerequisite at all, and I know from my own experience that the player can execute custom code on Oculus HMDs via USB connection. Right now, TouchPoint is using its own connection utility and doesn't rely on QuestLink, which also could be something to look into. TouchPoint entered a state of dormancy after public interest remained moderate. That's what my video is for. If you are interested in TouchPoint either becoming a commercial product or going open source, tell David in the comment section of this video. Apart from here, the topic can also be addressed in David's original Arcade Controls forum post, which is linked in the video description. As far as I am aware, Quest Pro and Quest 3 have not been tested with TouchPoint yet. I would love to hear your own findings for HMDs other than the Quest 2. If you live close to Toronto, Canada, David would also be open to the idea of borrowing a Lighthouse system from you to look into the compatibility issues. Even if TouchPoint specifically wouldn't succeed to make it, I hope it inspires other people to think of David's general idea of using VR tracking in the real world. I would be especially stoked if Lighthouse was supported. It breaks my heart to see how it is misrepresented on all big YouTube channels, giving the wider populace false ideas about it. This 2016 inside-out tracking technology, which relies on an external IR light reference system, is still the most accurate and precise tracking method available for home users. It supports the largest number of HMDs, and it is what powers the best current VR systems such as the Big Screen Beyond, Valve Index, and the HMDs made by Varjo. Of course, it can be used with Oculus HMDs too if desired. Recently, a viewer of mine who goes by the name Kentucky Fried Moose told me that he attempted to use the program's virtual desktop and Vive mouse in a manner similar to TouchPoint with Lighthouse. I am confident that people would love such a solution if available. If interested, you can find download links to TouchPoint in the video description. There's an Oculus Quest Series version and a generic Unity one, which works with Steam VR. This is the end of the review. My name is Ben. I thank you for viewing.